Good afternoon, everybody. So I want to take a moment to advise everybody of an update on a cold case homicide. Our victim has been identified after nearly 4 decades. The St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit has positively identified the victim of a 1986 cold case homicide as Blaine Louis Brown, Jr., born December 3rd, 1946. Brown, who was also known by the nickname Bunny, was 39 years old at the time of his death. On October 7, 1986, the body of an unidentified male was discovered bound and shot multiple times in an execution-style killing in a grove area approximately a quarter-mile southwest of Selvets Road on Rawls Road. At the time, a robbery was ruled out as a motive, as the victim was found with a large sum of cash in his pockets, wearing expensive clothing. And despite exhaustive efforts by original detectives, no suspects were identified, and the victim remained a John Doe, eventually buried without a name in the Fort Pierce Public Cemetery. In 2019, Detective Paul Taylor of the Cold Case Unit reopened the investigation with renewed focus and new technology. Funding was secured through the Florida Sheriff's Association's Cold Case Advisory Commission for DNA testing. An initial analysis by DNA Labs International yielded only a partial DNA profile. In 2020, a court-authorized exhumation of the victim's remains allowed for additional biological samples to be collected. Unfortunately, DNA samples remained insufficient for forensic genetic genealogy until March 2024, when the Florida Department of Law Enforcement approved grant funding for advanced testing by Othram, a lab specializing in DNA identification from degraded remains. On January 8, 2025, a genealogy report identified potential first cousins of the victim. Its subsequent contact with several family members, including a half-brother in Ohio, led to the submission of confirmatory DNA sample, and testing confirmed the victim's identity as Blaine Louis Brown, Jr. It should be noted that Brown was reported missing to the Marion County Sheriff's Office on October 7, 1986, the same day his body was found in Fort Pierce. According to his family, he was last seen on September 26, 1986, telling relatives he was driving to Miami in connection with a horse-related business. He leased a 1986 gray Ford pickup truck, which was later found abandoned in a Miami parking lot. Brown was the owner of Double B Farms, Inc., a horse ranch in Ocala, and Brown's Fine Furniture in the same city. Interviews with family members indicated that Brown may have been involved in narcotics smuggling, and he had ties to Ocala, Miami, Fort Pierce, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania during the 1980s. I do want to take a moment to commend Detective Paul Taylor and our retired state attorney, Mr. Bruce Colton, for their tireless dedication and commitment to this case. Their relentless pursuit of truth and years of meticulous investigative work have brought us closer to justice for Blaine Brown, Jr. and his family, and we are going to continue to work on this case until those that are responsible are held accountable for this homicide. I want to urge anybody that they can contact our cold case detective unit at 772-359-4407 or by email at taylorp@stluciesheriff.com. And tips can also be submitted anonymously through Treasure Coast Crime Stoppers at www.tcwatch.org. And we're going to open it up for some questions, and I know there's going to be a lot of technical questions, and I'm going to turn that over to Detective Taylor. He is well-versed in this case. We've spent quite a bit of time talking about it and reading about, the case is 40 years old, and up until recently, a lot's been done on this case through DNA, and we're very happy to identify the victim in this case, bring a little bit of closure for the family. And I know they've been, searching for answers for the past 40 years. You can imagine what that must be like. There were young kids involved, wife. And so a lot of time has passed, and we're able to now give the family some answers. So I want to commend them for doing that. I appreciate their efforts on this. They've solved many cold cases, and I expect this one to be done as well. But we need the public's help now. We're not worried about the narcotics aspect of this case. Some people might be thinking if they bring us information forward now, they're going to get jammed up because maybe narcotics charges. Look, statute of limitations is over regarding those cases. We are focusing now 100% on the homicide angle in this case, and want to bring closure even more for the family and justice for our victim. So with that, I'm going to open it up for any questions that you might have.
What does it mean to you guys to bring some type of closure to this man's family?
Well, I could tell you, I could speak for myself and representing the agency. It means everything, because that's what we're here to do, is serve people each and every single day. And one of our core values is treating people how we want to be treated. And I know if I was a family member, that's what I'd want to see some answers. You know, a lot of times, though, we can't give families the answers that they're looking for. And a lot of times they'll then point blame at, say, you know, the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office or an individual. But we work extremely hard. We try to do the right thing. As you can see, there's a commitment to excellence here with the track record that these gentlemen have working these cases. But it means the world to me that we're one step closer. But we have provided at least a little bit of closure for the family, and we want to get that next step, though, moving forward. Yes, sir.
When did you definitively determine this gentleman's identity? And once that occurred, can you talk about what you learned, perhaps in a little bit more detail about his life around the time of his disappearance, where he was living, the possible links to the narcotics trade?
Want to talk?
Sure. I will.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. So just to start out with the question that you asked, can you kind of ask that again, just so I can clarify what you're talking about?
In the news release, it indicated, I guess, the familial match or possible match with the cousins. When did you finally learn this Brown is the guy, 100%? And then after that, talk about a little bit more, if you could, about his life during the 80s, what you learned about him.
Okay. Once I got genetic genealogy done on this case and I learned of the first cousins, I actually started doing some digging and I found the possible half-brother. Once I made contact with him, I interviewed him over the phone. He gave me a lot of information. Once that happened, speaking with the FDLE genealogist and Othram, they actually instructed me to get up with him and see if he would submit his DNA, which I did send a test kit to him. He did the DNA test kit, sent it back to me. I sent it off to Othram, and it took a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks came back. It was positive. It was a positive match.
So it was the step brother of the
Half brother.
Or I'm sorry, half brother of the
Yes.
deceased was the. So that was maybe February, March.
March, beginning of March.
In terms of talking to him or other family members, what did you learn about his life at the time? I know when we talked about this earlier, you mentioned cocaine trade and cocaine cowboys and execution stuff. Talk about, just paint a picture of what you think his life was like at
Okay.
the time.
I have got a lot of information from the relatives, the ex-wife or the wife at the time. I did interview his son, who was 4 years old at the time when his father disappeared. They owned a large horse farm over in Ocala. It was an 8.5 acre horse ranch, and that's kind of what they were doing. I haven't been able to gather a lot of information about how that business was ran, but I know that on the day that he disappeared, he told his wife and his 2 sons that he was headed to Miami to deal with horses, and he disappeared. And whenever I did make contact with the son to do a death notification, he actually told me that throughout his entire life, he never knew what happened to his dad. He said he thought that maybe his dad just decided not to come home anymore. And so that gave them a little bit of closure there, a little bit of answers that why he never came home.
What made you how did you link up with what makes you suspect that he could be involved in narcotics smuggling, and talk about that?
Just where he was located, not to get too far into the crime scene, but there was evidence there. He had a lot of cash on him, so that kind of ruled out a robbery. I knew that somebody didn't go through his pockets and take money out and, kill him for that. So, and then he was actually, it's already been released, but he was bound, he was tied up and shot numerous times. So like an execution style shooting.
So it wasn't anybody said, oh yeah, he used to run drugs from between here.
Family members said that there was rumors that he was moving narcotics, but I haven't confirmed that 100%, but I'm still digging. I got a lot of work to do, so it's kind of why we're hoping that the public can come forward and give us some information about what he was doing over here, because where he was found wasn't someplace that it wasn't random. There was a reason why he was there.
What ties did he have to Fort Pierce?
That we do not know. I'm still looking into that. Supposedly he left there, and I think he was killed the same day that he left his house in Ocala. I think he was killed here. So I think he had some kind of ties here, and then a month later his vehicle was found down in Miami.
The DNA lab, is that from here or from somewhere else?
Yes, DNA Labs International is down in Deerfield Beach. They actually were the first ones to do DNA testing. I'm actually a board member on the Cold Case Advisory Commission, and they gave me money to do DNA testing on this case back in 2020. And it was just the technology was not there yet to go into the realm of forensic genetic genealogy. So it took until this year, the end of last year, the beginning of this year, before that technology was good enough to where we could get where we're at.
You've been on a roll, Solomon, cold cases.
We get an A for effort.
What number are you at now, and how more do you have to go?
This will be number 10, if we can actually bring this one to fruition. Find out who this is. I mean, it's bittersweet find out who this guy was, because he has been a John Doe for 39 years. So it's nice to know that, and it's nice to give the family some kind of information, answers a little bit. I know the son, he told me that he thought that his dad just bailed on him, said that, he didn't know. So now they know.
And you say number 10 since the 2019 when you got the
Yes,
DNA?
yep,
And
yeah.
what are you looking at other cases, not to move on?
Got
This
quite
one.
a few in the works, so.
Besides the 4-year-old son, I guess, you mentioned he had another brother, or I mean another son, I suppose?
Yes.
How old was that son at the time?
His sons, when he disappeared, was 4 and 7.
And are they still now living kind of in the Ocala area?
No, and I actually reached out to him this morning, so hopefully I can kind of tie that between the press and the family, kind of let them do what they want to do with that. But I did reach out to him this morning, but he is very busy. He's got a pretty interesting career himself, so.
Right, but they both still live in the
One of
state?
them lives in Florida. The ex-wife who divorced him 2 years later because he never came home, and the other son live out of state.
What exactly made it hard to identify the victim?
Just because whenever we found him, he was completely decomped. There was no fingerprints. There was no identification on the body. He really had no ties that we know of to the area. So there was no suspects, no witnesses, no anything back in 1986. So he was just a John Doe. They was able to develop a partial profile, but that was pretty much all we had. There was no matches for anything in CODIS. The guy wasn't a career criminal where his DNA would have been in CODIS or something like that. And it just took the technology to advance far enough to where we could find, the first cousin and kind of tie that back through there and then get military records and stuff. So
40 years is a long time.
it's a long time.
What would you say are your chances of tracking the people?
Well, I think that there's probably a lot of people out there that once they see these pictures of him, those pictures are from 1986. That's around the time that he disappeared. The picture on the far right there, that's almost the exact same style of clothing that he was found in, almost identical. He was probably wearing maybe those same pants and the boots that he has on in the picture. Same wristwatch, all of that is there. So somebody knew him. Even over in Ocala where he had this horse farm, talking to the family members, they said that he hired day laborers to come in and help out. And there's a lot of information that I've been able to gather as far as what was going on at that time. And I'm trying to reach out and talk to people that were over there that would kind of maybe give me some guidance on what he was doing and who he was associated with.
I remember the last time I talked to you, it was a case involving a keychain that you said was a connection. Anything on items on his body that when you exhumed, there was something there, maybe you can.
No, there was nothing there to help identify him. So that's why it took 39 years. And the numbers are crazy. It was 39 years ago, and he was 39 years old when he went missing, or when he was killed.
Not even the leased truck? You couldn't identify him?
No, the leased truck, the cases were never tied together. The missing person over in Marion County never matched with our unidentified human remains case here. There was bolos over there, there was bolos here, there was bolos for the truck in Miami. Those 3 cases just never matched up. In our case, when I was going through the case file, the original case file says that he was possibly a Hispanic male, just because of the color of hair that was there on the scene. He was so decomped, there was just no way to identify him. So he wasn't Hispanic, as you can see. So it just never matched up. Nothing connected the 3 cases together. So
Was this the scene on Rawls Road? Or
Yes,
whatever where he's-
that is the two on the bottom there, Rawls Road. That's from the original investigation. The pictures were pretty poor back in 1986, so
What is that on the picture there, the round?
that's evidence.
When did you guys exhume?
I exhumed him in 2020, trying to get some type of DNA. So I did a court order, and that was actually the first time I ever got to dig somebody up, but that was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, folks. Well, thank you all for being here today. And again, anybody that has information, contact St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit or Treasure Coast Crime Stoppers. But thank you for getting the attention on this case. Now that the victim has been identified, we're hoping to generate some more leads and get this case resolved. So thank you all. Appreciate it.